Welcome, everybody, into the show. And, of course, happy Friday night. We are your host. I am Jake Jordan, a.k.a. the Northeastern Nostradamus, joined, as always, by my main man, Justus, a.k.a. the GM. And we are your Friday night guys underneath the Friday night lights. And this is Built Different. So, Justus. It's been exactly 3 months since our last show. Exactly, to the day. I was editing stuff and I went, oh, it was 4/28/2023 was the last time we had the show.
We did that on purpose, though. So
definitely. That was definitely planned. So I was looking at all this stuff, getting the show together, updating the graphics. As everybody can see above us, we've got just the giant name of the show here, which is beautiful. And of course, Built Different, and all of the shows on the Buffalo FAMbase podcast network and YouTube channel are presented by 26 Shirts. So, we're up there, Justus. We've got one of those sponsors, man.
yeah,
We got one of those sponsors.
making our way. Maybe a few more. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Some of the other shows got some, but of course, the first segment is the welcome back. This is the housekeeping, right? It's been 3 months since our last show, man. What's going on with you? How you doing?
I'm good. New digs, of course. So you guys don't hear the ferocious beeping anymore. Or like a kitchen behind me or some randomness. But yeah, man, I'm good. It's so good. Like I just felt like, what am I gonna do with my life? Like I didn't know what to do. Like I started studying like molecules and atoms and protons and ions and
pull out the science textbook.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like this is like, what am I supposed to do while football's away? But we're back to training camp and we're back to business, built different, you know what I mean, coming back. So I'm feeling really, really good, really excited. How you doing, Jake? What's going on, man?
Oh, dude, I am feeling absolutely great. The other day we were talking and I literally told you, it was like, we have not done shows in a while. I haven't done like a podcast or anything. I've been doing all this other stuff, right? Like all this other stuff. And I'm like, the one thing that I want to do and what I want to get back into, what's going on, Richard, is to be here and to talk about the Buffalo Bills on YouTube and for the people watching on Twitter. So, lots of stuff has changed. You've got new digs. I'm pretty sure I was in this apartment. Yeah. I think people can't see it because it's like black behind me, but I'm in a completely new apartment too. So it's like, kind of things been changing.
Set it up exactly how the other one was. I thought that was
it looks the exact same. So nobody would ever know. But it's great. And of course, it's one of the best times of the season because football, you can literally smell it. Like it is coming back. And like we're in the full swing of things now. Of course, in the off season, there's the draft and free agency and all these things that kind of, you're just limping to get to. You're like, oh, okay, we've got that. But then you're like, oh, now what? Now when do we wait? When does training camp start? When do OTAs start? Rookie mini camps, all that stuff. And now we're at the true training camps. So like everything that we've heard so far, right? And we're going to go into a bunch of stuff in this show. We've got it all laid out here of just things, what are going on, what is the battles that we're going to be looking at, where are positions that we want to be focused on more, that we are kind of looking at and going like, yeah, these guys, that's more important than maybe like your battle at safety because there's not a battle there. So it's like, Josh Allen's going to be your starting quarterback. There's no battle there. So we've got a bunch of stuff going, and just overall from training camp, that time of the season is rolling around. How are we feeling about that, Justus?
Well, I'm feeling very excited because, hey, Brandon Beane is our GM, ladies and gentlemen. Not a ton to worry about when Brandon Beane is your GM. So, going into the season, we always have reason to be excited. We have reason to believe this is our year. You know what I mean? And I feel like this is another example of that. The
Mhm.
season, nothing's changed. Honestly, I feel like we got a better team than we had at the end of last year. So, another season where we start off excited. We'll
I
see.
I I
It, it,
knew
it
I
feels it
ugh.
feels like, oh my god, again. You know what I mean? I'll compare it to something. It's not quite the parallel, but uh,
Mhm.
I'll try to make an analogy. It's like, remember during a drought where every season was like, yo, next year we'll be making the playoffs. Like, we got
Oh,
the
yeah.
team. We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
this much weight. If they didn't all
Mhm.
get injured, bro, we would have made. If
Mhm.
he didn't do,
Right.
bro, we would have made the play. You know what I mean? And it's kind of starting to feel like that again. But
Ugh.
it's at the very least, it comes with 12 and 13 win
Mm.
seasons. So like, you can't complain too much. You know
We're
what I mean? It comes
spoiled.
with, yeah,
We're
we
spoiled.
are. We
The
are.
we
We were
sound
watching one of
so
the greatest
entitled
quarterbacks.
right now.
We
We're
are.
like such entitled fans. Wow, but I love it too because like you're saying, we're sitting there like, man, could have made the playoffs. We had that to look forward to, right? Because football pretty much ended at the beginning of January every year for the Bills. Like it was like there was no football after that. And I know there's people that are like, well, I lived through the 90s and the late 80s and I got to watch so much playoff football. Good for you. You know, like I'm happy for
When
that.
did that?
But
Like 5 years ago.
yeah. And like now we sit here and it's almost expected that we make the playoffs, you know? It's kind of like crazy to even think we're at this situation, but we get to training camp every single year and it's like this team's going to be better, man. We've upgraded at these positions. Look at how we get, and then like halfway through the year we're just like, man, maybe these weren't the kind of upgrades that we thought they were going to be, and like, and I know that's a pessimistic way of looking at it, but it's also like kind of realistic because it's happened multiple years. It's not just like something that like, oh, it happened one year, don't expect that to happen again. It's happened multiple years, but I think that the excitement coming into this year, for me at least, is that this Buffalo Bills team, there's all this noise out there, right? About other teams. And it's not about this team anymore, you know? They're being written off going into this year pretty much, which is weird to say for a team that, you know, still won 13 games last year. You know,
Should have been undefeated, really.
yeah, like it was it's crazy to see kind of how this offseason is shaped up. Obviously, we're going to be talking around the division here too in a couple of segments, but all the focus is on other places. And now we're excited about this team. We have this expectation for our team. It's kind of like the situation where the Chiefs were last year, you know, where, you know, the Broncos load up, they get Russell Wilson, and then the Chargers are going to be this team. They're like, oh, the Chiefs, you know, they're in trouble. They're not going to win the division. And then they, you know, do what the Chiefs do. And, you know, I'm kind of sitting here in the same boat where it's like until the Bills, you know, get knocked off that pedestal, then what is there why are we having this conversation? You know, it was never like that with New England.
Right.
But it's kind of like, all right, it's more exciting now. So there's so many different factors going into this season and it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it, but I'm trying to hold myself back because if I get too excited, then I'm gonna be way too emotional if things don't pan out. And maybe that's just you know, being the people that we are, talking about football and like trying not to we want to be analytical, not super emotional about it,
Cautiously
and
optimistic. Yeah.
cautiously optimistic. That's the perfect way to say that. But going into this training camp, Justice, there's some names that we were wanting to look at, right? And one of those big names is Dalton Kincaid. You know, he's the first round pick. He's the tight end. He's a skill position player. He's got all of this hype around him. And he seems to be absolutely balling out in training camp. Now, stop me if you've heard this before, but rookie does good in training camp. Wow.
Really?
Wow.
They can do that?
I know he might be the next Travis Kelce, man. Like it just off of some reps in training camp. But no, he has actually looked pretty good. And kind of what we've heard from some of the players is that this dude's route running is already at an elite level coming into, like he's running with the ones. Most rookies don't get that treatment. Usually they get thrown in there with the twos. Dawson Knox is the dude who's been cemented, paid at that tight end position. And the Bills are saying, no, we're putting Kincaid out there anyway. And he's been running with the ones and he's been tearing it up. What do you think about Dalton Kincaid? Things that you've seen, things that you've heard. Dalton Kincaid, is he a hit for this first round pick just at this point in time, just looking at it?
Listen, I keep telling y'all, man. Listen, Brandon Beane lives in a cave, right? He goes out at night and fights crime. Okay.
Okay, all right.
He is Bruce Wayne, all right? He is a contingency plan for everything. He thinks outside the box, right? I know that this kid hasn't played much in college, but man, can he run routes? Man, can he catch the ball? Man, can he catch the ball when being contested? No fumbles, like 2 drops. I mean, he's out here mossing people, having 200-yard receiving games against ranked. Like, it's a contingency plan because Dalton Kincaid is not a tight end.
No,
he's not a tight end. He is a wide receiver. The best wide receiver that was in this draft, actually. The best catcher, he's up there in route running. None of them block, so I don't care that he doesn't really block. And then he's even an underrated blocker. He can block. He just probably doesn't prefer it. He's a pass catcher.
Yeah, right? And a lot of experts, just to add on to this for you, had him as like the number 2 receiving option in the draft that year when it came to just ability to catch the ball. And it's just like,
Njigba?
Yeah, behind Njigba, and that's crazy.
He's bigger, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I love it because of course, Tyreek Hill is super duper dangerous, but Jackson Smith-Njigba is not that fast, right? And Travis Kelce does a ton of damage, and he does not have a 99 speed on Madden, so speed ain't everything, right? And unless you have like the top end speed, then okay, but you still even have to put the tools behind that, or else you get like, what's his name, Justin Ross, I forgot his name now because he's irrelevant now. He ran like a 4.1 or something stupid, like
John Ross, who just retired, so enjoy.
John Ross III, who retired the same year as Tom Brady. Like, so my point is, in 3 years, when this kid is all pro and, he has his first 1,000-yard season as a tight end and, he's being touted as top 5. And I said, this is 4 years from now. So Travis Kelce won't be a thing, right? So now he's in contention, probably the best tight end in the league, right? And we get to pay him like a tight end, all right? You ain't got to worry about him getting 4 years, but $30 million a year for your wide receiver. All right.
Hold on. In 4 years, we don't know what that tight end market might look like.
It ain't gonna look like the wide receiver market.
But it could be. It could be into the high 20s.
The market increases because you get more money.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it's like a percentage of the pie, right?
Yeah.
Your wide receiver, your elite wide receiver, is going to get a very big slice of the pie, as i.e. Stephon Diggs, right? If Dalton Kincaid is the best tight end in the league, whatever the case may be, you get to pay him like George Kittle, who I think, if I remember correctly, he makes as much as the 17th highest paid wide receiver in the league, and I'll take it.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely like just crazy to think about. And speaking of the receiving options on the team, right? Stephon Diggs has looked like Stephon Diggs. And we don't need to go into all of the stuff that happened in the off season and all of the media, just absolutely blowing stuff up out of proportion, whatever it was.
I'm glad he did that. I don't even care about the media stuff.
Yeah,
They need stuff to talk about because there's
yeah,
no football going on. So they're gonna, of course they're gonna overblow certain things.
yeah,
But I'm glad he did that. So, but I'm sorry.
yeah. And he's just come out and I think just to talk on this subject really, really briefly, him coming out and doing that press conference and just kind of like clearing the air about everything and kind of just being like, hey, I want to retire a bill, stuff like that, where it's just like all these people are like, oh, he wants to go to Dallas and no, like all this stuff. He's like, no, that's all noise. Like that's people doing their job, but that's not what's going on. So, I think, but him in training camp, he has looked just as good of a player as we're paying him to be. Like he is that dude. He's top 10 receiver in the league. He's that dude. He's your number one option. But our number two option, Justice, a lot of people are saying looks really, really good. And we'll talk about the number three too. But Gabe
We can talk
Davis
about the number
apparently.
2 option. Galton can get no.
We're not hold up.
I'm
Hold
joking. I'm joking.
No, Gabe Davis. And this is close to my heart, but a lot of people saying Gabe Davis looks good this year. We're gonna get a different version of Gabe Davis. And Gabe Davis, I've brought it up to you when we've had conversations, is that it's a contract year. I expect this dude to ball out. Like he's probably going to. That is how the NFL works. These dudes go absolutely insane in a contract year. And for a receiver, that man could be getting paid a ton of money coming out of this year. It might not be from the Bills, could be another team. But I think that when you've got guys like Stephon Diggs saying, like, hey, Gabe Davis would be a number one for a bunch of other teams. Like, if I wasn't here, he would be for sure number one. Like, it's when you've got that kind of confidence going in the media being like, yeah, he's looking good, like, he looks healthy, which has kind of been his problem, the last couple of years where he gets banged up and then the speed kind of slows down and then they send him on these long routes, and he had a little bit of a clap back in the media thing where he's like, well, if you look at all the route, most of my targets are coming, past 4 yards down the field. Like it's a lot of guys are getting these short, right? He's like, I'm being targeted like 16 plus yards down the field. Like and that, yeah. So I
Sorry.
think that I completely understand. I think that Davis is going to have one of those years where, you're going to be like, man, why did this have to happen? Like, great, it happens in a contract year, but then you're like, oh, we got to pay this guy. Then you start having those questions. Third receiving option, not in the wide receiver room. Apparently today, Trent Sherfield decided he wanted to just look like the dude who could take over that third spot. And this is maybe a question we could have, is this position battle for who do you think takes that third wide receiver spot? I mean, we got Shakir, we got Sherfield, we've got Deontay Hardy. Now we just signed Andy Isabella today, which is, for anybody who maybe doesn't know, is like that dude's fast. He's fast. And the Buffalo Bills have had an emphasis on getting fast dudes in, which is great because I think that's the one thing our team has lacked is speed. But when you look at the wide receiver rooms, if you had to say your prediction for wide receiver 1 and 2, it's going to be, Diggs and then Davis. Wide receiver 3, who do you think that's going to be?
Well, let me touch on Gabriel Davis real quick.
Sure.
We heard this last season, right? The Bills were like, we don't even have a 1 and a 2. We have a 1A and a 1B, right?
That's cap,
So
but
we've heard this before. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, Gabriel Davis had a pretty good season last year.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. if Gabriel Davis, let's say, let's go to fantasy land real quick. Let's say he has 1-0 drops last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's an All Pro. The numbers that he would have put up with those catches, he'd be All Pro.
Yeah, no doubt.
So logic tells me Gabriel Davis is a damn good wide receiver. I mean, I mean, you've heard it since he was a rookie that he knew the playbook better than veterans. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's a leader in the locker room. You know, he's vocal. He knows the playbook really really well. He's intelligent. He's smart. So I mean, that doesn't surprise me that Gabriel Davis is doing good in training camp. He
Yeah.
does good when he's on the football field. He just needs to find consistency, and I hope he does find consistency. Obviously, and I think he will this season. However, I think last year might have bit him in the tush a little bit, regardless of how he does this season. I
Mm-hmm.
think that at the very least, he's getting franchise tagged if he has a really good season. But
Yeah.
I don't think the Bills are going to pay him an exorbitant amount of money. I don't care how well he does because of all the drops last season. They're going to be like, you got to show me that again.
Yeah.
I just need your contract year, and which I think is fair. Unless
Completely.
you would rather take a like a upper middle deal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a good wide receiver too,
Yeah.
instead of a wide receiver one.
Yeah, and I think too that you're spot on with that. And when we talk about Gabriel Davis, is that he was good last year. The year before that, he was phenomenal. And last year, maybe you have to attribute some of the lack in production of Gabriel Davis and some onto, yes, Ken Dorsey and the play calling and the routes they were having Gabe Davis run. They were no longer doing these short little outs and him getting the ball quick on the sidelines. Like they were sending him go down. Like he was the long ball target. And while he's good for that, he can be that guy. He works better within 10 yards.
Yeah,
You know, he's
every
somebody.
receiver does, unless it's like a
Yeah,
short, fast receiver. But like other
yeah,
than that,
unless
most
it's yeah,
receivers work better in the short to intermediate.
exactly. So I think that we'll have a evolution of the Ken Dorsey system this year where he's going to look at everything that maybe he did wrong last year. I'm praying. We'll talk about more of this when we get to coaching concerns. And then we'll utilize these players in a more efficient manner. Dude, Dorsey going to be nasty in year 2. I hope he calms the Mafia's doubts. I'm praying. I'm so
I
praying.
hope
We
so
need
too.
that.
I stopped talking trash about him. I'm his biggest critic right now, and that's only because I was his biggest fan last offseason. So I got to give you the equal opposite
Ex-
of what you know what I mean? You showed that you were in the biggest moments, he was garbage.
Still had, what is it, the number 2 highest scoring offense?
And they didn't play a whole 3.5 quarters of one game, and then they
Mhm.
sat multiple fourth quarters. So they were the best offense in the league as far as I'm concerned.
And his quarterback
Was the reason
was,
for all of it.
well, yeah, that he's the reason for all of it, but also his quarterback having a UCL injury. The
All right.
UCL, uh, for people who don't, kind of what it really affects is the short to medium range accuracy is what it does. It wasn't Josh Allen not able to launch the ball anymore because he could do that easily, but it was the accuracy within 10 yards that kind of those little motions for the accuracy that really affects. So hopefully with Josh Allen being healthy, them being able to be more comfortable running those again, those really short plays, and Josh Allen can hit those like they're nothing because he's healthy now. I think that's going to be a huge step up for the evolution of that. But of course, we've already kind of talked about some of the concerns coming into this. Justus, if you had to say, let's just look at outside of coaching concerns because we've got that later. The concerns that we have for this team right now, what position group are you looking at and going like, oh, dude, that's going to be a problem? That might be a problem.
I'm not really looking at any position group and thinking it's going to be a problem. Um, I think that they're good enough strategically and also in almost every other area that the weak points they can make up for them. And I think that they have just enough talent there to be serviceable at the specific units. But the most concerning unit obviously has to be the linebacker, with the
Yeah.
loss of your potentially all pro, middle linebacker. This guy, for all intents and purposes, he could be one of the greatest ever one day. And I mean, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that or are not fans of Tremaine Edmonds, but y'all don't watch football, so stop talking to me. But
Okay.
and of course, he has a lot of growing to do, but he's a young man. Still the truth, whether or not you guys want to accept it or don't want me to use that as an argument, is still the truth. And I digress. Anyway, the linebacker position is something that obviously has to be monitored, right? You got some talent there, you got some rookie talent, you got some young second year talent. It's a lot of really young talent. However, you have Matt Milano, who's an all-pro, and he is going to be able to teach whoever is standing next to him the ropes. I personally think AJ Klein. Wait, AJ, he's still on the team, right?
Yes, I do believe AJ Klein is on the
roster. I think he's going to start the season at middle linebacker just because he knows what to do. And I mean, he wasn't that bad when he last played for us. He was actually pretty good. He started off as a hot mess, but he improved mightily throughout the rest of that season. So I think AJ Klein probably is going to start at middle linebacker. Then you're probably going to see the Rook come in and take over. But I think
whichever one that is going to be, yeah.
And we've been hearing a lot. They say they've been using Taylor Rapp at linebacker in training camp. So
Balin Spector, I believe, was getting some reps, but also Terrell Bernard apparently showed out a little bit today in training camp. Kind of them already talking about where I believe it was Poyer coming out and talking about Bernard and saying that he's a dude who can lead the huddle and is one of those guys. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what you need. You need one of those dudes in the middle of your defense that, hopefully is smart. He knows the playbook and he's a leader. And that's kind of what you want your Mike linebacker to be, kind of, So I think that that's really what I want. Bring back Takeo Spikes.
Yeah, for real. And London Fletcher.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, someone convince Lorenzo Alexander to come back, please. Like, can we just do that? But I think that middle linebacker, it's a concern for me, but I think all the things surrounding middle linebacker make me feel a little bit more comfortable with it. It makes me go, the rest of that secondary just kind of makes me go, okay, maybe we can afford to, because is whether people want to really acknowledge it or not, there was nothing that they really could have done in free agency when it came to middle linebacker late in free agency with what they were trying to do with like little money. There's nobody really out there that you could be like, oh, that dude plugs the hole immediately.
Yeah.
And they did check in with a bunch of guys too, because they knew they were going to lose Tremaine Edmonds. And then those guys ended up going other places. So now they're kind of in the bed that they made, and they're going to make it work. And Sean McDermott, being the coach that we know he is, will find a way to, get through it. And maybe one of these dudes does take a step up, and that's hopefully what you're banking on. But I think that the other one too, and maybe this one is just kind of, okay, yeah, this is a given, is the right tackle position. I mean,
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm
more concerned about that than a Mike. Honestly,
yeah, because when I look at it, I go, look, Spencer Brown was, I'm gonna put this as nice as possible, very disappointing last year.
He wasn't that good his rookie year, but people were like, he's a rookie, give him some slack. So like, okay, and then he was crap last year too, and now he's crap in the Madden cast. It's like,
he was so bad they have to replace him with David Quessenberry. Like, that's, so it's like, okay, when I look at that right tackle spot, I go, I really hope that Spencer Brown recovers from this back surgery and finally getting this offseason with Aaron Cromer to really work with him, I hope really does something. Dude's got the athletic traits, like crazy, absolutely crazy. But he's just been very disappointing, to put it lightly, the last 2 years. And when every other single spot on the offensive line looks like it's going to be either future proofed or have tons of depth with dudes that have been there and done that, it makes me feel, kind of like the right tackle is your weakest link. And those tackle positions, especially the right tackle, if you've got a weak link there, teams are going to feast on that. So they smell blood in the water. They're going to be sending their best pass rusher over there to go against Spencer Brown every single play. They're going to have to put Bobby Hart in as a jumbo tight end just to help him out, because that's what's going to happen. So I think right tackle is probably my most pressing concern. And a concern for me, Justice, and I know this is, okay, Jake's got to do this every single year, but I have to. And we talked about this before we went on the stream, is the cornerback 2 position. I wasn't really worried about it because I thought Kyer Elam or Christian Benford, one of those guys. I would have preferred Kyer Elam because you spent a first round pick on him, but one of those guys was finally going to take that step up and finally be given the opportunity by Sean McDermott to become the cornerback 2 to play opposite of Tre'Davious White, so that we could, see what we have for the future. But I should have known when we re-signed Dane Jackson to a 1-year deal that Sean McDermott was getting ready to play games. Like, we hear now Dane Jackson is the one running with the ones for the majority of it. Benford and Kyer are running in 2s or the 3. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, why though? Like, they're getting put in there, but then they keep going back to Dane Jackson. And I think Dane Jackson, we know what we've got there. He's going to be solid in the position, but he's not your future, because he's not. Like, he's the stalwart. He's the guy you have there that if somebody is having a rough game or they're not executing the game plan the right way or whatever, you can throw him in and you're going to be fine. He's not the greatest, but I feel like with these dudes like Kyer Elam and Benford, maybe to a lesser extent because he's a later round pick, you got to give these guys the time. If not, what are you going to do? You're going to burn 3 years of their contract because you're not as comfortable putting them in there as a dude that you're just like, oh yeah, I know this guy can run my stuff. When the upside of Kyer Elam getting those valuable reps is much higher than Dane Jackson. I mean, all we have to do is go back and look at Kyer Elam. He was the guy they matched up one-on-one on Tyreek Hill at the end of the game in the playoffs, and he swats the ball, ends that game. Tyreek doesn't get that first down. It's done. Like, I felt like that play right there is what made us all go, okay, Kyer Elam is going to be a dude that, if he's the guy they trusted in that moment, they're going to trust him to have more reps at, the cornerback 2 position this year.
Yeah.
Apparently not, at least as of right now. And it really gets under my skin because I thought we were done with this. I thought, okay, it's Trey White and we've got, our cornerback 2, whether it's, Elam and Benford, they kind of fight out for that position. But no, it turns out it's not. And then of course, Taron Johnson is great. I've had my qualms with Taron Johnson.
Dog water.
Yeah, and he has proven me wrong, and I am so glad for that. But I know Dane Jackson's not going to prove me wrong because Levi Wallace didn't prove me wrong. And Dane Jackson, I don't think, has a higher ceiling than Levi Wallace did. And it feels like the same situation. So kind of what do you think about that? Because I'll be the doom and gloomer over here. I need you to come here and kind of reel me back, Justice. Reel me back a little bit.
So I'm not as low on Dane Jackson as the public is. If you look at, the games and the films and him one-on-one, he is not a bad corner. He is actually probably above average. His weakest point is the point of attack, ironically, unfortunately. And that is a big problem. However, he's glue every step of the way. It's just, the wide receiver goes up and makes a catch over his head, and he really doesn't do anything about it. And it hurts, but like if you go and you watch the low light reel of 30, these guys are making some spectacular plays. And it's like, Jesus, this is always on Dane Jackson. But what that tells me is that you just had a really bad luck season. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because if your helmet gets in the way of some of those footballs, or, you put your hands up in time and, you can learn that trait of being able to be better at the point of attack. So if you're glue every step of the way through it and then you learn to be better at the point of attack, those turn into turnovers. So, excuse me, I'm not as low on Dane Jackson as everybody is. I also feel like Dane Jackson is Christian Benford before Christian Benford was Christian Benford, right? He came in as a late round pick and people was like, oh, he's pretty nice. They put him on
Dane Jackson was, undrafted, right?
Yeah,
he was an undrafted.
He came in, he demanded, playing time and proved to be pretty good. People were clamoring for him at one point, and then some of the biggest plays in the season were made against him, and people.
That was me. That was me clamoring for him because Levi Wallace was pissing me off.
But I do think he has a much higher ceiling than Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace just simply didn't have the physicality or the speed to be able to keep up with top receivers.
The athleticism,
Right. I think Dane Jackson, I don't know if he does necessarily have it right now, but I feel like he could potentially have it, and I feel like he knows how to do what he does very well, right? So he knows his strength and he knows his weaknesses. And unfortunately, the point of attack just happens to be the most glaring weakness right now.
Yeah.
And, but I do agree with you. I would like to see more Kyrie Elam simply because we spent the first round pick on him. And I do think he has all the talent. I was on Rob Crippen's podcast, shout out to the Nickel City crew. And I said, I think that Kyrie Elam is probably going to, in this season where there's questions like, is he going to be the CB1 next year? I think he's going to push Tre'Davious for that spot. And Tre'Davious may keep it just off the strength that he was an all-pro corner and he's just not coming off injury and whatnot. But I think
we're talking about McDermott here. He is.
Right. So, but I think this could be a situation where you're looking at Bills like a Miami type of deal, right? Where they got Byron Jones and, well, not Jalen Ramsey.
They had Xavier Howard and Byron,
And so now they have Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. Of course, he's injured, but just the two dynamic cornerbacks. I feel like we might be in that situation. And then you have Taylor Rapp, Christian Benford, and Dane Jackson to boot. I feel like iron will sharpen iron, and that secondary will be fortified, will be extremely strong, not only because of very, very talented players at the free safety, CB1 and CB2. This is me assuming Kyrie is going to be CB2. But then you also have reinforcements, in Dane Jackson and Christian Benford, Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin. And I feel like they will be a vital part of this season. I don't know if we'll necessarily see a rotation, but I think you'll see the backup safeties and the backup corners on the field more than you would typically see in the regular defense.
Yeah, you also brought up Taylor Rapp getting some of those reps at linebacker. And that was something that, you brought him in, and of course, he's a safety, but he's not a small dude. He's a dude that you could put down there at a linebacker position. He's a guy that has been said by Sean McVay. He's said it multiple times that he can play pretty much anywhere. Like he's one of those players, and I kind of like the versatility of Rap as a player. I think that's one thing that even though they brought Jordan Poyer back, they still thought, okay, let's bring this guy in because Sean McDermott just loves dudes that he can plug and play absolutely
Yeah.
wherever. And another thing that happened today is Ryan Bates kind of taking a step back there from the right guard position, and Osiris Torrance getting that opportunity to run
Wait,
with the ones.
wait a minute, hold on. I feel like there was somebody who said that Osiris Torrance is going to start over Ryan Bates no matter what, but other people were like, "Well, if Ryan Bates is better." That was the most annoying thing. Ryan Bates might win. I'm gonna stop talking, bro. The dude is
Osiris Torrance gave up 0 sacks, right? Or 0 sacks in college. I watched
his
him in
entire
Florida.
college career.
I watched him in Florida. He is one of the most solid. Like he's a wall. He's a brick wall, dude.
Literally.
And like when I heard that, I'm like, good. And I like this. And I'll let you get this input here too. But Ryan Bates works better for me as your dude who you can plug in at both guard spots or the center.
He's the best 6-man in the world.
Yes. Like he's the guy that I think, like when we were having Greg Van Roten be the backup center when Mitch Morse had to go out, I'm like, no, Ryan Bates, if we didn't have this shortage of linemen, should have been the dude at center because we've seen that he can actually perform well there. He's the guy that I like the Bills to have, to where, you know, for years it was, oh, we'll put Ike Butker, you know, he's the guy who can go anywhere, something like that. You know, Ryan Bates is a guy that you can stick it left guard or right guard or center if a guy goes out, and you don't have to worry about it because he's not a bum.
He's solid.
He's solid. So I really like that. I hope Torrance takes that job. I would love it. I love the fact that Aaron Cromer, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL as of late, is now in Buffalo, molding his hands on these new draft picks we get and getting these say in draft picks that we're bringing in. Kind of like, hey, the scouting department, everything. I think this guy would be a great fit. I mean, I think anybody could have told you just looking at Osiris Torrance. Yeah, you go get that guy.
Yeah,
you go get that guy. Like he's
the second. Yeah, draft him.
Yeah. Get
Tap
him.
him on the shoulder right there, him, the big dude.
Yeah,
get his attention for me.
Wait, that big guy's still available down there? No, get him on the phone right now. He's coming to Buffalo. Real. So that's crazy.
You take a look at what Brendan Mean has done. He's drafted. I mean, he's signed all of these offensive linemen, an array of offensive linemen from all over the place, including a lot of versatile offensive linemen like Nick Boger. Guy who can play center, who can play guard, who can play tackle. I would like to. Instead of the colossal, Osiris Torrance being, so-called, he's in a competition for his spot. Ryan Bates might be the starter over him. There's a whole liability standing next to him. So why are you messing with the 7 foot, 400-pound guy? How about you tap that other 6'8" dude who's been getting fleeced all season on the shoulder and say, "Yo, you got some competition, dog." Like, am I more comfortable with Ryan Bates at right tackle than Spencer Brown? For the beginning of the season, yes. Until I see that he can't play the position, I know that Spencer Brown has shown that he can't play the position. Of course, he can. He's just not very good at it. But
he's just not good at the most important thing that we need him to do, and that's pass blocking.
Right.
Run blocking, he's okay. But pass blocking, nah. Like the most important thing, not really. But, that's just talking about the Bills. We've gone 46 minutes and we're only two two
Oh
segments in here.
shoot! Oh, that's
But
tough.
that's fine. I knew that team concerns was going to be the big one, right? So now we've talked about the Bills. Let's talk about other teams in our division. We're not going to talk about the Patriots. And of course, we're not going to go into too much of depth of this just because we have other shows that we have to do this off season. So we're going to need that content for other shows. But around the division, things that have happened right now, kind of some news going on. Jalen Ramsey going to be out a majority of the season after I believe it was a meniscus injury that required surgery. And thankfully for Jalen Ramsey, I know he's a Miami Dolphin, and some people want to just like be very rude about it for some reason. Uh, wish him well. This is a blow for the Dolphins, major blow for the Dolphins, because now behind them they got guys like Kader Kohu, these guys or
Ooh,
Cam Smith is a guy who they
ooh.
drafted in the second round this year who
Oh, I
could
was
be a good guy, but it's like Jalen Ramsey was going to be that guy who, you were going to have Xavier Howard, who I think is a very hit or miss corner. I know people think he's locked down, but I've watched Stephon Diggs embarrass him many of
Yeah,
times.
he reminds me of Antonio Cromartie in the sense that he's a very
Sure,
good
yeah,
corner,
yeah.
but when he goes up against one of the best, he kind of get fleeced
Yeah,
sometimes.
he gets fleeced sometimes, and he's one of those corners that really benefits from having a really good corner across from him because
Yeah.
he had Byron Jones for the last
Mhm.
not really
3 years.
last year, not really last year because of injuries to Byron Jones, but the 2-3 years before that they had Byron Jones, those dudes were locked down. But then last year you kind of saw Xavier Howard once Byron Jones was out of the picture, kind of getting absolutely, fleeced on some plays. So I think that Jalen Ramsey was kind of them. Plus, they gave up capital to go get him. But now he's done, probably until end of October, probably December is what
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of things go.
they said late November.
That's a big blow for them. What do you think that defense, which they're good defense, that secondary is really good. But when you're going up against teams in the division now, that you've got, again, the Bills with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and then you've got the Jets now with Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard. And then, like, you need a dude who's going to take the one, and you need a dude who's going to be serviceable enough to at least slow down that second wide receiver. Are the Dolphins in a little bit of trouble here with now two teams that have good 1 and 2 options with above average quarterbacks throwing the ball to them and even great quarterbacks? You know, are they in trouble there?
The Dolphins, I wouldn't say they're in trouble. They're their own biggest enemy.
Mm,
Um, the Dolphins will determine whether or not the Dolphins are good this year. They can all band together and come together and learn how to be a team and be a Super Bowl contender, or they can falter and be a 10-16, 10-17 rather, excuse me.
yeah,
And in this AFC arms race, 10-17 doesn't guarantee you a playoff spot.
no,
Um, so I can see it going both ways. Jalen Ramsey losing very, very much hurts. Um, it is a big deal. However, they still got Xavier Howard. They still got Javon Holland, and that boy is a beast.
he
If I
is.
could have any player from any other division, it would either be no, we got plenty of cornerbacks. It would either be
I'm
Saul
taking Matt
Darnold.
Judon if that's the case from the Patriots. I'm getting him
Oh no,
if we were
I'm,
playing that
I'm,
game. He had
I'm
15 and a half sacks last year.
I'm going Javon Holland. I am. I think that he would be crazy in our secondary.
Oh,
But yeah,
he would be.
my point though is that the Dolphins are in as much trouble as they allow themselves to be.
Mm. And I think that too, a big problem for them is losing him for some of their big games. Their first game is against the Chargers, where it's Keenan Allen with what is it, Mike Williams. So you needed Jalen Ramsey for that game. You really did.
And they
Like,
got Johnson now.
yeah, and so it's kind of like, okay, they're gonna have some problems. They already had problems with the Chargers last year, so now they're down basically with the same defense again against them, and the Chargers absolutely whooped up on them and actually exposed them last year and helped the league develop a game plan for the Dolphins.
They did.
So
Yeah, they did.
so the Charger, which is the one thing we can thank the Chargers for, they're embarrassing in most other respects, in what they do and how their
They've been own
seasons
worse
always
enemies
end.
too.
Yeah, exactly. They're always shooting themselves in the foot, but they helped, kind of write the game plan out on the Dolphins for a bunch of other teams. So talking about the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook is apparently, going in for a visit, and the talk is they're not going to let Dalvin Cook leave the building without signing on the dotted line and whatever. So does Dalvin Cook, adding him to that Jets team, does that move the needle for you at all? Because for me, I think it does a little bit, but not enough to where I think it strikes fear into anybody's hearts more.
I mean, they already got Brees Hall, so I mean,
Yeah.
it was already a problem. So like, you add another good player at the position. I mean, fresh bodies, sure, I guess. But I mean, I don't think it moves the needle that much. If they didn't have Brees Hall, this would move the needle. But I think the needle was already where it was because they do. And I think Dalvin Cook coming along would be a good tutor for Brees Hall, and also could be a dynamic playmaker for them. But I don't think it would like increase or decrease their odds for a Super Bowl or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think if you went to Miami, it would either. I mean,
I
Miami is a very good running team. They were going to have a good running game regardless.
yeah.
I don't think it would move the needle if we got them either.
No.
Well,
The only team I think he moves the needle for if he goes to them is like the Patriots, a team that really utilized that run game.
I could see that.
That's a team that I would
That
be
makes
like,
them a better team for sure. Not a contender,
yeah,
but a much better team.
but a better team that you're gonna have to worry a
You're
little
gonna have
bit
to deal
more
with,
about.
yeah.
Because
Especially in Buffalo where it's cold weather, they're gonna run down your throat.
exactly, and Dalvin Cook and Ramondre Stevenson would be a great 1-2 punch. So I don't know why I think the Patriots are in on it, but Dalvin Cook doesn't want to go to the Patriots because he knows that the other 3 teams in the division are probably going to be the ones that win. So he's not really considering them. But yeah, I think that just him going to those teams, one, I don't think that those offensive lines are good enough to make you go, oh man. Like Brees Hall was already doing crazy things last year. Do I think that Dalvin Cook is going to give you any more value with what you're going to have to pay him, which is like $7-8 million? Like, does he add more than what Brees Hall did in those first, 4 weeks of the season last year? I don't think so. I think Brees Hall, that's the cheaper and the younger, better option. Dalvin Cook is just nice insurance. So it all depends on if the Jets are really just trying to push their chips all in. Hey, let's go get these big names.
I already did.
They've already done it, so they kind of have to go now. All right, how do we kind of cement this? And the crazy thing about this team is it's all on paper right now. I mean, the Jets, we don't know what they're going to look like. Robert Saleh as a head coach hasn't really proven to me that he can overcome, bad coordinator play or anything like that. Then again, he's had bad quarterbacks. So we don't know. It's a complete question mark for them this year. They're either going to be the team that the media thinks they're going to be, or they're going to just absolutely fail in spectacular fashion. So I can't wait for that. What are your thoughts on the Jets and the Dolphins, in comparison to the Bills going into this season?
I kind of get AFC West vibes.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
I think the king of the hill is the king of the hill. Like, you know, it ain't the Boomhauer show. You know what I mean? It's Hank
Yeah.
Hill's show, right? And until somebody knock off 17, he's Hank Hill. And just like until somebody knocks off 15, hey, he won a Super Bowl when he was supposed to. This time last season, I was saying that they was going to be third in the division, like a moron, and they went and won a chip. So again, I think in the same fashion, they're gonna have to do it before we actually start saying that they, have come for the Bills side of the throne or whatever the case may be. Even one season, the Jets beat the Patriots and in the playoffs to go to the AFC title game. People thought it was over. Wasn't over. It wasn't close to over.
Was not over.
They went on another dynasty after that. So, even if they do have a good season, if the Jets threw away their future when they signed Aaron Rodgers, even though he gave back $35 million, I still think they're going to compensate him in some way. But I don't know if
that dead cap hit on year 3 is like $53 million on that contract.
I don't know if they're going to be able to maneuver out of that one and find another quarterback that is going to be able to lead them to prosperity.
They're going to have to lose people. That's always what happens when you go all in like this. You end up like the Rams are. They've got one of like the worst rosters in the league right now, and they still have no cap space. Exactly. So when you kind of do that, thankfully the Jets aren't doing the F those picks strategy where they don't have any draft picks. They've actually got a ton of draft picks, but it's kind of just like, I think that both of these teams, and I've said it every single year, it's the same thing. Oh, Bill Belichick got Mac Jones. They're going to take the Bills. The Bills had their little run. It's over. What happened? Bills win the division. They smack the Patriots in the playoffs. Like, legitimately just drop it on the table. Like, it was pretty much a BS narrative. That was the same year that they won the Mac Jones threw 3 passes game and whatever. So they do that the next year. What is it last year? Oh, the Dolphins are coming for the Bills. They're going to beat the Bills. They're going to win the division. They're going to be the AFC East. What happens? Okay, the Bills win the division pretty handedly, and then they play the Dolphins in the playoffs. Close game. Bills still beat them in the playoffs, and they're going on. So until we see it, I'm not going to say, hey, yeah, no, there's a chance. I mean, there's always a chance, but till I see it, I won't believe it. Yeah. Because right now, you can't tell me the Bills didn't get better in the offseason, because they did. And this is a team that won 13 games last year. So these other teams have gotten better. So yeah, those games might be a little bit harder, but the Bills also upgraded. So I kind of see it as like just an evening out, where it's almost like these teams are at the same point where they were last year, where you're like, oh, these teams have a ton of talent. They can make a run at the Bills, but the Bills are still that team that's kind of like, all right, well, we're just going to sit here and make you guys have to take that spot from us. So I really like that for the Bills this season, having all that doubt around them. I brought it up.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm gonna make a parallel here real quick.
All right.
It's a little ambitious, so stay with me, right?
Okay, I'm listening.
It kind of feels like World War II to me, right? You got the Bills are America.
Okay, all right.
The Allies have just stomped out Germany.
Okay.
And then you got tough guy over on the other side of the country, of the world, that's attacking people, thinking that they hot-ish now, you know what I mean, and they got some power and all this other stuff, and then they on purpose decide to poke the sleeping bear and attack Pearl Harbor, right?
Yeah.
They use what? Jets. Okay. So then you have to unleash unholy hellfire
Go
twice,
full Oppenheimer.
twice a year, right?
Yeah.
On these same jets. And then after these jets are extinguished because they put their all into a 39-year-old guy. I don't know how old he is, but I feel like that's probably somewhere in the range, right? They put all their stock into this old dude who's not going to be in the league in 3 years, and they're going to eventually fizzle out, right? And then I think you're going to be stuck with two superpowers, America and Russia, right?
Okay.
There's going to be the Bills and Dolphins who are going to be, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and the Dolphins, they got all these superstars, right? Just like Russia was this big, huge
Yeah.
country, all this influence, yada yada yada. But it was like real empty in the middle. You know what I mean? Like wasn't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
much. Like the citizens was sad. It was poor. It was cold. They had no food. All this other
Yeah.
stuff, right? Kind of like the Miami roster, right? You got some superstars, but it's real top heavy. Man, really
Yeah.
much depth that's like super uh, threatening, right? But then you got America, strong, top heavy, not too top heavy, also have really good depth. And they have an advantageous home front because they're on a complete other side of the war, just like Buffalo is on the other side of the country from Miami.
Yeah.
You have to come here in December and deal with us, or January, whatever the case may be, and deal with us. And I think, I think we eventually just I think we just outlast them, and we go back to being the dominant force in the AFC East, which we never really were not the dominant force. But people was playing with us, and we had to show them what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I really liked at the beginning. I'm like, where's he gonna go with this World War II
Well,
comparison,
back
right?
then they were a superpower. They're not a superpower anymore
Yeah,
because of Gorbachev. But
yeah, they were then the Soviet Union. So we're saying right now that the Dolphins were gonna be Soviet Union era uh,
yeah,
Russia. But the problem with that is that eventually having all those stars are going to leave eventually.
right,
Eventually those guys are going to go. It's going to be like the Soviet Union dissolving,
exactly,
and then you're going to be
exactly.
left with a team where, you know, maybe they don't have two anymore. Maybe they moved on and they tried to draft another quarterback, and
Tyreek Hill is now not the fastest person in the world.
yeah, and like, it's kind of like, okay, that experiment failed. The Jets experiment fails. Who knows what's going on in New England, and the Bills are still just kind of that, you know, one Hill has one more season after this before he retires.
And now Stalingrad is being trampled, and they're pulling down statues.
Yeah. So I really think that the division has gotten better, but I think the Bills have accounted for that. And I think that it's not going to be as crazy as everybody kind of
I agree, and
in the
I'm
media
really
thinks
proud
it's
of my
going to be.
analogy because it kind of came together
Yeah,
a little.
yeah, it really did. It really did. At the end, again, like I said, you started, I'm like, where's he going with this? And then by the end, I'm like, oh, okay, it all came together. So we've talked about that. We've talked about what we think the other teams could do. We have expectations, though. We're fans. We're fans of this team. We have things that we want them to do. So, Justice, your expectations for this team. If you could just pick one thing, one big expectation that you have of this team going into this season, what is it?
um, I don't want to say anything too crazy because, like we've said that in the past, and I don't want to say that they'll do anything I don't necessarily think they're capable of doing. Like in the past, I've said they've gone like undefeated and stuff like
I was
that.
about to say, I thought you were going to be like, I don't want to say they're going to do anything too
No,
crazy, but they're going undefeated.
no, they're not going to do anything too crazy. But my expectations are to win the Vince Lombardi Trophy and Josh Allen be MVP.
I mean, those are pretty,
I feel like they're tame
standard.
expectations.
Yeah, that's
And reasonable.
Yeah, it's reasonable because they've proven that they can
do it. They
are
have the talent to do it.
They have the talent to do it. They have the players that should be able to push them forward. and make that kind of move. Again, a big thing in the NFL, and a lot of people, there's no such thing as a luck metric, but you need a little bit of it, and the Bills last year had none of it. So I think that, with a little bit of luck,
Actually, they had reverse luck.
yeah, they did have
We
reverse
had
luck.
terrorist attacks. We had
Mhm.
players dying on it, bro. We had the worst luck.
The worst snowstorm, literally, and
Snowstorm.
yeah, had to play 2 games in Detroit back to back.
Yeah.
So absolutely crazy there. I would have to say my expectation is a step forward with the offense. And I know that's crazy. Like, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean step forward with the offense? They were the number 2 scoring offense last year. But I think that when I say that, I want that step forward in the play calling. I've already talked about it with team concerns, where I thought Gabe Davis was hampered by it last year. I thought that Dawson Knox maybe was hampered by it a little bit. Like, there was less creativity when it came to the, offensive play calling. And I want to see Ken Dorsey take that step forward. And I think if he takes that step forward and they utilize more under center play action plays, my God, they work. Josh Allen loves them. Please, for the love of God, utilize them more. Especially now with Dalton Kincaid. Oh my God.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
so please, I want to see that step forward. My expectation is to see a step forward from the offensive play calling. And I really wanted to say I want to see a step forward with the defensive play calling with McDermott handling those duties now. But I don't know if it's going to be any different.
I mentioned this when I was on the radio. I said, and maybe I was a little harsh, but I feel like it's a valid point. If Sean McDermott didn't actually control the defense and it really was Leslie Frazier, then that means all Sean McDermott really brought to this team was extremely conservative coaching. Didn't coach the
Yeah.
offense, didn't coach the defense. Was just like, no, let's punt on 4th and 1 and kick field goals from the 57-yard line on 4th and 3. I mean, punt from the 47-yard line. Like, he just was super, super, super conservative. And
Yeah.
if he didn't control the defense, if he didn't at least have that as part of his repertoire in terms of, like his resume and things that he's contributed to the success of his team, granted, he's changed the culture, and I completely understand that. And I give him all the credit in the world. I'm just saying, in terms of what last season brought, if he wasn't coaching the offense, he wasn't coaching the defense. All he did was brought conservative play calling and really, really good post-game speeches.
Yeah, I think that I decided to change the little topic bar down there while we were talking about it because I completely forgot that our next subject was coaching concerns. And the concerns that we have for this team, I do have concerns with the defense. I really do. Because for so long, we've heard Sean McDermott say, this is Leslie Frazier's defense. I believe in Leslie Frazier. This is his defense. Okay. And we saw, what was it? Maybe probably 3 seasons ago at this point, halfway through the season, Sean McDermott took over the play calling back for over Leslie Frazier. I think it was just for 1 game. He takes it back. And you see a more aggressive play calling approach, and you're like, wow, okay. And then Leslie Frazier adopts that for a little bit for the rest of that season. And then over the next 2 seasons, it goes back to the same conservative, and you're like, okay, so what are we really going to get here? Because I don't think you can say, oh, well, go back and look at Sean McDermott as a defensive coordinator for his other teams, and that's what he's going to do for the Bills. I don't think so. Because the game is different now than when Sean McDermott was a defensive coordinator. You can't run the same stuff that they used to anymore. Quarterbacks are way different now. Like, schemes are completely different. There's players out here that you can't just run the same basic stuff against anymore. And I don't know if it's going to be more aggressive. I really don't. I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm going to sit here right now. If we're sitting here week 10 and it's the same exact defense and they're bend but don't break, zone heavy. And I'm just like, okay, we're not really changing. Nothing's really changed. So I think that's what concerns me the most. I think we need a defensive kind of change in mentality. What do you think about that? You're muted, my friend.
My bad. I'm gonna use the exact same motion that I used on mute.
There you go.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
I get where you're coming from. It's kind of like, all right, the Bengals just went out there and basically bitch slapped us. Defense got to change. However, I do think that there was a method to the madness when creating that style of defense. It was like, all right, well, we got a freak at quarterback. This freaking spaceship landed in Wyoming and brought forth, Josh Allen or what it Fireball, California?
Fireball.
Fireball, California.
Yeah.
Spaceship landed in Fireball, and Clark Kent came, to the society. But if this guy's our quarterback, he's probably more times than not going to score a lot of points, 30 at least. If I could stop you from scoring the most amount of points as possible, you could, we're not, you know what I mean? Like, the only thing you're not doing is getting the deep touchdown on us. You have this little middle of the field, the short area, blah, 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 blah. But once we get down inside the 20, we, hunker down and we
lock up. Yeah.
Lock up, right? So if you can force turnovers, you can hold people to 3, goal line stands, which you're very good at.
Yeah.
Theoretically, this should work for you. Now, the big issue comes in when you've got wide receivers running post corners in 5 inches of snow. And, when your second best wide receiver is 27 yards down the field and there's a blizzard. You know what I mean? Like just stupid play calling and just, ineptitude. And you are bailed out constantly by Clark Kent. So I don't think that the defense necessarily is the worst philosophy in the world. Although I would like to see more aggression, more
and that's all I'm saying too, is that I want more aggressive play calling.
Yeah.
From less passive play calling, more like things that Ron Rivera said when when Sean McDermott was the defensive coordinator, he was aggressive. And that's kind of what I want to see more of that thrown in there, because you look at a guy like Steve Spagnuolo for the Bengals, they're aggressive as hell. That defense, and we've seen, and we see what they did to us. Yeah. They absolutely wrecked our day. And I think that sometimes, now obviously you don't go into every week saying we're just going to blitz them a million times, because they'll prepare for that. But utilizing that aggression better, like not just playing safe all the time. Again, let's go to 13 seconds. Why are we playing back like that? What is this happening? Even in the Bengals game, we're just playing back on these guys. I'm like, you're literally, I don't understand giving them that much space. That's where
7 yards behind, away from the wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly. That's the stuff that I hope disappears. That's all I want. And when it comes to the offense, I really need Ken Dorsey to diversify the play calling there as well, because we need to utilize more under center play action concepts, like stuff that we've brought up throughout the other, topics that we've talked about today. And it's just like, we need some change. I need evolution on both sides of the ball. And that's kind of where my concern is because I don't know if McDermott is necessarily going to think they need to change, because you've had a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why do we change anything? So that's kind of Frazier's defensive kryptonite is any 3rd and 18 situation.
I don't even think that. I think
Yeah.
Leslie Frazier did a good job of putting his players in position to succeed. But when you go for an interception instead of just knocking it down against one of the top 3
Yeah.
best wide receivers in the league, like he's going to make a top 3 wide receiver play.
Exactly. So, let's talk about some of these wide receivers the Bills are going to have to go against in our last segment before we wrap it up here tonight for the first episode back of Built Different. We're going to talk about the schedule. So, again, it's been 3 months since our last show. We didn't really do anything to talk about the schedule and kind of like what it looks like for the Bills coming up. And I mean, we can just talk briefly about these games. We don't have to give scores. We'll do an actual episode where we sit and kind of give our record predictions and stuff.
Yeah.
But like this one, I mean, we've got some tough stretches in this schedule. Like our whole division kind of has tough stretches throughout. We've got, I believe it's one of the hardest schedules in the league again, right?
Well, the AFC East and the NFC East play each other this year.
Yeah.
So they're the 2 best divisions in football.
Yeah.
So from 1 to 8, the hardest schedules in the league are all AFC East and NFC East teams.
Yeah, and because we have the first place schedule, we also have to play the division winners. So it's like, okay, we get the Jets week 1. I think this is when you realistically want the Jets, because it's their first game. Yeah, it's the first game of the season. They could have a bunch of hiccups, maybe aren't firing on full cylinders. Second game against the Raiders. The Raiders are one of those teams that I just don't know. It's like,
you don't know about what?
Like, are they going to be good this year? Are they just going to be mid?
Quarterback, and Kyle Shanahan's not the head coach.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be good.
I think they're going to be like mid. I think they're mid. Like, they probably win like 7-8 games.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, I can see 7-10 season.
Yeah. Washington's a team that I wouldn't sleep on. I like Washington personally.
Depends on who their quarterback is.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sam Howell, probably.
If it is, we blow him out. But if it's not, then we'll see.
Yeah, Sam Howell throwing it to Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Sam Howell didn't look bad last year. He didn't look bad. Nope. He wasn't amazing, but he didn't look bad. So,
but we get to put J.D. McKissick in the dirt.
Is McKissick even on that team anymore?
I think he is.
Is he? I don't even remember if he's. Let's see. We're gonna both. There we go. Football running back. He is
free agent.
He's a free agent. Yeah, so he's not even on the team. They didn't re-sign him. I think that Washington, their defense is good. That's kind of the one thing that they can hang their hat on, is that they've got a good defense. I like their running game. I like their receivers. I think they're a team that, any given Sunday could put the heat on you. So I actually think that Washington is not going to be crazy, but isn't Garrett okay? Spin is asking, isn't Garrett Wilson hurt? Could miss week 1, maybe. I know that it was an ankle thing, but I don't know if it's going to keep him out for that long. I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much, so I really can't comment on if he misses week 1. But if he does, that's killer for the Jets, because
how unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh no. And then we get the Dolphins at home in October, which, thank the scheduling gods for finally realizing that heat stroke should not be a home field advantage.
Right.
So, and a lot of crazy things is the Dolphins play a lot of their away games later in the season, or their home games are later in the season when it's colder,
right.
and so I like that the scheduling gods are like, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna keep doing this to you guys till you put like a
I
roof
think
or something.
everybody would prefer that though. Even the Dolphins fans, or even the Dolphins players, rather, would be like, "Yo, I would much rather be here in Miami,
Be,
where it's 70 degrees, 65 degrees in December, as opposed to going
yeah,
to, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin, and having to play in the frozen tundra."
yeah, being in Florida too. I mean, if you're gonna go sit out in the sun and watch a football game, you'd rather be doing it later in the year than in the heat of the
104-degree
summer.
weather, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that the way they did it. Dolphins at home in December. Again, the Dolphins week 4, they're not gonna have Jalen Ramsey, so I think it's gonna be a tough game for the Dolphins, but we'll see. Then we get to go to jolly old London and face the Jaguars. So
Which will be aired on Sunday for the Madden Cast viewers.
yep, that's going to be on Sunday. Let's see. Bills fan 1970 says they might be better with a different owner. I'm
Who's that?
guessing you're referring to Washington, whatever they're going to be
Oh,
called.
okay.
I think they're probably going to be. I think they'll be better. I think they'll be better overall, just because
The
there's going to be
morale
more.
is better.
The morale's going to be better. The fans, too, they've all shown up.
Yep.
To the Spin has said the Washington Warthogs. I like the Red Tails, Red Wolves, something like that. It
All
kind of
our
like
Commanders.
I like the football team, to be completely honest with you.
I
I
like
felt like
the Commanders too.
I thought Washington football team was, it was different. It kind of made them feel like they were like a football club over in
Special. Yeah.
in Europe, like Chelsea FC or something like that. They're the Washington football team.
I
So,
also will say that I did like the Washington Generals. That was a great good name too.
oh,
Just,
the Generals, yeah, the USFL team. Love that name.
oh,
Uh
that's right. That's right.
yeah. Yeah, let's see. Then after the Jaguars, which that's probably going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Jaguars are one of those teams that's a up and up team. Do I think it's going to be like a shootout back and forth? No, I think the Dolphin or the Jaguars have more room to have
Bro.
some room to grow there. So, but I think that'll be a great game. They'll definitely have the advantage going into that game too, because even you brought up to me, they play in London the week before that too, so they get to stay.
Yep.
So that's crazy, and they're only doing that because their first London game is considered their home game, but technically the Bills are considered the home team for this game against the Jaguars in London, which I don't get
Yeah.
because now we lose a home game. But still, then we come back and then we play the Giants on Sunday Night Football in Buffalo. Absolutely huge game. And I'm telling you right now, if we lose that game to the Giants, the anti-McDermott crowd is going to be up there, going to be like, we kept
You
the wrong bald guy.
Yo, why are people saying that? It is so crazy, bro. When Brian Daboll left, half of us were like, good riddance, right? But then all of a sudden, after we lost to the Bengals, people were like, oh, we should have kept Daboll. I wanted to leave McDermott. We wanted to keep Daboll. I was like, no, you didn't. None of you did. Why are you lying? There's no point. Nobody in their right mind thought, let's fire this dude who changed our entire organization and hire the dude who can't run an offense with the best quarterback in the league. Or, well, he could, but
I
can't
was
run
about
it
to say
consistently.
that year
Can't run it consistently.
that 1 year that he had before he went and got hired last year, he was great, I would say, as a play caller.
He was really
Not
good, but
yeah,
the inconsistency frustrated me. He was
yeah,
inconsistent at the biggest moments, like the Chiefs game where we lost the 13 seconds.
yeah.
I'm not going to put it on him, but I will say that in the first half he wasted a lot of opportunities.
I would say so too. There's a lot of empty plays in the first half of that game. Next game, we've got the Patriots in Foxborough. I'll say it right now. When we do the schedule thing, I'm going to say both Patriots games are going to be a win this year.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
really.
one of them going to be a 50 burger.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about them. Then we get the Bucks on Thursday Night Football.
Where is that?
That is at home.
Okay.
So that's a home game. The Bucks are going to be back to the second years this year. So
Yep.
no. And then we get the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. So we're getting into that stretch of the year where the 1 p.m. games on Sunday are like gone. Now we're getting either your 4 o'clock games or your primetime games.
Oh, this is Burrow's back by this point.
Yeah, Burrow's definitely back by this point. He'll probably be back for week 1, to be completely honest with you. He's probably just out for the preseason. Yeah, then we get the Bengals. That's a huge game, dude. Like this stretch that we have like coming up here is we get Bengals, Broncos, who have Sean Payton now with Russell Wilson. You have to assume they'll probably be better. Jets again, Eagles, bye week, Chiefs, Cowboys, and then we get Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. So from the Bengals all the way to I'll say the Chiefs, if you win against the Bengals, the Jets, the Eagles, and Kansas City, say you won all 4 of those, I don't want to hear jack from the media. I don't want to hear any of it if you beat all those teams. Now, do I realistically think that they probably drop one of those games? Or no, let's see. We've got out of 5 games, I could see them losing 2 out of that, going 3-2 in there. But if they went 5-0, woo, that's your hardest stretch of the season. And they could go 5-0 too.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think that
I want them to lose to Kansas City, though. I want them to lose to Kansas City because I'm tired of Kansas City, us giving our best during the regular season against them and then winning. And then in the postseason, they're like, oh, we saw everything that you had to give us, so now we're going to beat you. I'd rather lose and then us have to change up our game plan if we play them in the playoffs. So, I would rather lose that game, but I definitely want to beat the Eagles. I want to beat the brakes off the Bengals. Not because I don't like the Bengals, just that, you have to win that game to prove something.
I don't like the Bengals, so I agree.
I don't hate them. I don't think they're like a bad organization or anything like that.
Their fans, not only their fans, but their players also piss me off. Their fans piss me off, and the players piss me off. So I don't like them.
Really, the fans?
Yeah.
I mean, I
was doing security for that playoff game, and we had to kick some guys out.
5-0, 20-0. I love that. That's
proclamations here.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Justus, the last time he said we were going undefeated, it didn't
almost
end well.
did. We should have.
Honestly, so that's kind of just the schedule at a glance. Not really going in game by game, which maybe that's next week's show. Maybe we just go we go game by game next week and give our official predictions, and I get to put my Nostradamus name on the line. I prefer every game to be Sunday at 1 p.m. I know a lot of people like that. I kind of like the primetime games.
I like tailgating for the primetime games, but as far as watching them, I like the 1 p.m. games.
I mean, it's a whole lot easier for a 1 p.m. game, and then if you win, you get to enjoy the rest of your football Sunday,
Watch other teams and hope they lose.
Exactly. You get to just root against everybody else. That's what I'm going to be doing that Jaguars game. It's at 9:30 in the morning.
Yep.
So we're going to get to watch that game, and hopefully the Bills win so I can just sit there all day and just watch football.
The Chiefs lose, watch the Patriots and the Jets and the Dolphins lose, and Bengals too.
Yeah, when we went to a Jets game last year. It was the Jets game later in the season when they came and played in Buffalo. And after we left, we went back to my uncle's house and we cracked a few blue lights and turned on the Dolphins Chargers game. My day couldn't have ended with a better game than watching Tua just get absolutely just rocked out there by that defense, and that defense learning that, hey, if we hit them within the first 5 yards, that throws off Tua's timing and we can get to him because then he gets confused. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then that's where the Tua spot thrower narrative came from. So, yeah, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. First show back, Justus. How'd it feel?
That was good, man. I was good. Long week of work, so apologize if my energy was a little low, but it's good to finally be back talking football, man. I've missed it, bro. I miss talking football with you, bro.
I love just sitting here putting a show together. We got the little change ups now. We got super chats for whenever people want to use those. We've got the topic bar at the bottom of the screen. Like, it's all things heading up for the rest of this season. And I can't wait as training camp goes on. We're going to get a little bit creative. We got the Madden cast going on, so even when the season and preseason starts, as much as we're all like, yeah, I can't wait to watch preseason, by halftime of a preseason game, you're not even looking at the screen. You're on your phone or Twitter. So, like, you can watch the Madden cast and you can see what's going on there. So it's going to be fun. We'll have that going. Then during the bye week of the regular season, where there's no Bills football game going, we'll have the special edition Madden cast that is the former Bills greats versus the Bills all-time team versus the current Buffalo Bills team. We'll have that special Madden cast there. So a lot of cool stuff coming for the channel this season. So be out on the lookout for that. But Justus, you're the man at this. So why don't I brought us into the show and you bring us right out.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, guys. Make sure you go check out the rest of the amazing shows and content on Buffalo FAMbase Network. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It's all over the place, man. We got content coming from every single direction. And we do it all for you guys. You know what I mean? If you guys weren't there, join us in our chats and watching the shows and everything else, there would be no reason to do it. So we appreciate you guys. All the likes and comments, subscriptions, retweets, reposts, shares, everything is super appreciated, guys. And we really, appreciate your support and hope to see you guys for, the rest of the season, because it's going to be a good one, guys. So buckle up.
Yeah, definitely buckle up. Spin, just to answer your question there. No. If there's a current player, they have to play on the other team.
No,
so they won't be.
You have Josh Allen versus Josh Allen. That's good.
Yeah, you got to have
Josh versus Jim.
Yeah, it's got to be Josh versus Jim.
Andre versus Steph.
That's Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, So it's two Goliaths going at each other. I think you have another 4 hours left in the show. Spin, you missed the 4 hours, man. The 4 hours were before you joined. You got to go back and watch the replay of that.
Right.
But of course, Justus, as Justus always says, we thank you for every like, retweet, repost, share. Is there anything else I'm missing there? Justus?
Comment, subscription, super chat.
A super chat. We got to throw super chats in there now. So yeah, you guys know it's been awesome. Of course, everything here at the Buffalo FAMbase YouTube network and podcast network are brought to you by 26 Shirts and all the beautiful people over there. And we want to thank you guys for joining and supporting all of the different stuff at the Buffalo FAMbase, whether it be on Twitter, on the website, or on YouTube. We want to thank you guys. And of course, we will see all of you guys next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.